Most definitely. Hi, everybody. It's Kelly and Jim from the X-Files Preservation Collection, and we're very excited tonight to be talking to the owner of the Gremlins Museum. Hello, Ian. How are you today?
Good. How you guys doing?
We're doing really, really good.
We're very excited to be talking to you. I'm a
Yep.
big fan of the Gremlins, so yay.
And this is
Awesome. Happy
probably,
to be here.
yeah, this is probably a shock for a lot of X-File fans because you're thinking a video is going to come, it's going to be X-Files related. And no, it's going to be Gremlins related.
Yes.
So, Ian, uh, tell us about yourself and tell us about how you got involved in Gremlins.
Well, I'm a bit of a collector. I don't know, every so often I kind of switch gears a little bit, but I think this is kind of the deepest I've ever really been into anything. But I got into Gremlins I don't know, as far back as I can remember. Most of my like earliest memories are like somehow weirdly Gremlin related. I know I saw it in a drive-in back when I was a little tyke. So I would have been like 3 or 4 when it came out. And I don't know, I have all these weird memories, like my dad going and buying a beta player, and the guy
Yeah.
that sold it to us, like he gave us this rub-in transfer Gremlin kit. He's like, "You should have this."
Oh, yes.
So it's weird how like a lot of those early memories were kind of like tied to that. And when Gremlins 2 came out, I was a bit older, and so I've kind of better memory of it. The Gremlins 2 Nintendo game was a big thing. So it's always kind of just been in the background, something I really liked a lot. And I definitely had a distinct memory of being a kid and being like, someday I gotta like figure out how to own a gremlin. There must be a way to own one.
Yeah,
And so kind of brings us to present day, I guess.
there you go.
So, yeah, I mean, it's fantastic what you're doing.
Yeah.
What's your future goals for with the Gremlins?
I don't know. I'd like to. We have the Mopop Museum here in Seattle, and I would feel pretty weird lending these things out, except to maybe them. And it would be kind of cool. Is like, I mean, this has been my sole focus in life for the last maybe 5 years or so, and I think it'd be kind of cool to have everything in one place that people could kind of go and enjoy. And that's not really my house, so.
You know the feeling.
That's something I would like to do because I know people. I have had people over and given tours and stuff like that, and I think it would just be better to be able to share this with more people, and that's probably the best way to do it.
Right. So you said you've brought some people over and gave them tours and stuff. What was their reaction when they saw your stuff?
People are pretty like flabbergasted. I think it's kind of cool having all this stuff in just one place. Sometimes in collections, people have one or two gremlins or something, but um, I'm also kind of a collector where like I don't really want everything. I'm very selective in what I buy, and so everything is really kind of pretty much grade A material at this point. And so it's oh, it's this one from this scene and this from this scene, and so. I think it's pretty cool. I mean, I'd want to make a place that people could visit that I would be astounded by, and so it's kind of what my goals kind of been.
Right. Now, with Gremlins, we see in the background right there, we see some of the props and stuff. Do you collect like promotional stuff, commercial stuff, and all that too?
Yeah, I mean, I have a bunch of merch. I'm trying to like go away from that a little bit, mostly for space reasons. But I'm trying to like, you know, got to keep like the relationship with the wife good, and so just she needs to know that I'm making educated, smart choices, with our money. And when a puppet could cost 30 grand or something like that, then you need to be pretty focused on what you're doing. And um, it's a little hard to see from here, but this I'm entirely surrounded here in this room, and then I have a whole nother room filled to the brim at this point now. So it kind of comes down to just space at a certain point.
Yep.
Right.
That's how we ended up opening a museum because
Our house was
we
loaded with
ran
it.
out of space, and I told
Right.
him he needed to find somewhere else for
Yeah.
his.
Right. There was rules in the house that, no. no props or anything. Could be like in the bedroom,
Or
my
Yeah.
daughter's bedroom.
he
But
would, the minute a kid moved out, he was filling that room. Every closet
Uh,
was full.
yeah,
Like you couldn't hang your clothes up. Like, okay, it's time to do something else with your ex-spouse stuff.
yeah,
there was like a point where my 4-year-old kind of realized I had cooler toys than he does, and so
yeah.
he'll come in here every once in a while and kind of scope things out, and like I'll let him borrow like like stuffed animals and stuff like that, and he'll kind of his room's a little decked out. My 13-year-old has plenty of Gremlins stuff he's stolen from me up in his room, so it's
Nice.
kind of a family thing.
So
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious. Do you remember what was the first Gremlins item you collected? What was your first? Like for Jim, it
So
was the card set. So
I kind of got thrown into it, like kind of like right into the deep end. You can kind of see it right over this side here. This guy, he's
nice.
the first that showed up. And in the Gremlins world, stuff from the first movie is the most rare. Like it's
Right.
just it's like you rarely see puppets come from that. And I was kind of collecting like low level merch stuff just for fun. But I was checking eBay one day and somebody had posted one of these things up, and I think they knew what they had because they said it's a puppet from the movie. It came from Warner Brothers or whatever. But I think he was pricing it kind of like it was like a trick or treat gremlin.
Yep.
And but I was looking at the pictures and going way back, I had studied like Tom Spina's website. Like I'd been going to his site for years just because it's freaking cool. Like just all these
Yeah,
Right.
puppets being restored and like
that
and
is nice.
so I recognized from the eyes, I'm like, that is not a replica. Like these, it's just no way. And then I'd also noticed from his website too that a lot of the puppets come in sort of decapitated because the weak point is really the neck.
All right.
And so this puppet was decapitated. It was kind of looked really old and kind of clearly shedding foam and all that. And so I reached out to him, and this was probably maybe like 2 minutes after he had posted it on eBay. And I said, like, what do you want for the gremlin? Like, I'll take it. And I probably would have paid whatever he said.
Yeah.
Uh, but he came back to me, and it was like I forget, it was like $200 or something. And
Wow.
and I was like, send me the invoice,
Yeah. Quick, take
and
my money.
Yep.
and so then it just became like, all right, well, let's see what shows up at the door. I mean, that's a pretty solid gamble.
Right.
And it ended up arriving. It got delivered to my next door neighbor's like house.
Oh gosh.
Oh
So it
boy.
said it was like delivered, but it was actually over there, and so I had to track it down. And sure enough, it was legit. And I sent it off to Tom, and him and his crew kind of reassembled it. And so, I mean, these things go for big bucks now.
Right.
So that was literally getting like thrown into the deep end,
Yeah,
and
that's crazy. That's a crazy place to
caught the
start.
bug.
Yeah. Exactly. So how was the process when you sent it off to Tom?
The process was pretty good. I mean, it was more just like filling in the pieces of the puppet and reattaching the head, and they're really good at kind of making things look really seamless and alive again. And they paint match everything, so you can't even really tell. Like they did a pretty exceptional job on it.
Right. Now, were you worried when you had to send it?
Uh, Not as much as I am now. Like I feel like back then I was like really naive about it, maybe. And
Yeah.
now I'm kind of like, get a crate and like
It's his first piece, so
Right. Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, I was
Exactly.
definitely like very naive back then. Like now everything goes by crate, and I'm very like careful on how I do it. Like I've even put out like, Ian's guide to packing gremlins for people.
Nice.
Uh,
Yeah.
so it's, when you spend a fortune to buy the prop in a lot of cases, you spend a fortune to get it restored, then the last thing you want is something to be damaged in transit, and you're just like, oh man, I'm back at square one.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Transit.
And
Yeah.
with Jim, he's always worried about it getting lost in shipping. So whenever he's got something coming, he's like almost unbearable
Yeah.
to
Well,
agree with.
we've had a prop one time. purchased it from somebody that was in Australia, and we're upstate New York, and it's saying out for delivery in Chicago.
We
And I'm like, we got a problem, and I'm
got a big
panicking
problem.
and
Yeah,
I'm sweating and everything, and you know, so
ever since then.
yeah, I get really nervous, you know.
My hack is I have a whole slew of air tags, and I just throw one into the crate, and
Hey, there you go.
so like sometimes especially stuff going international, it'll say like it's stuck in Cincinnati for like 3 weeks, and you're like, where is this thing actually? And
Right,
there's enough people walking around with like iPhones that it kind of pings it enough times, so you kind of have a good idea, and they're cheap enough. It's sort of like an easy insurance, you know.
so that's a
Yeah,
great
that's a good
idea.
It
idea.
Yeah,
works. It works really well. Anything of value, I throw an air tag in there, and I tell the people like, "Don't worry, I'm not like snooping on you. It's just to keep track of where that crate is."
exactly. You know,
Yep.
in your props and stuff like that, what was the hardest piece to get?
Hardest piece to get. I don't know. Trying to think. I worked really hard to get. I have. It's a little hard to see here, but I have. It's a Lenny and a George Mogwai, and they're both pretty significant pieces. And some of these deals they just take like years to happen,
Oh yeah,
and you'll kind of be poking people. Just you don't want to be annoying, but uh, some of these pieces have taken like 3 years to get done. So it's like the money exchanging hands is actually like the easy part, right?
absolutely.
It's getting the deal done, like getting them to commit to it. For a lot of people, these are like their babies, and so you
Yeah.
know. But yeah, it's I have a few deals right now that have it's ongoing, and we've more or less agreed on money, but it's just getting something happening and committed and moving on.
Right. Like you say, the rarest stuff is from the first Gremlins movie. It's like the X-Files. The rare and the hard to get stuff is the Vancouver years, the first
Mm.
5 years. So we can kind of relate to, what you're saying,
Yeah, it's I don't know, it's interesting. Like I think in the whole process, I don't know how it is for you guys, but for me, like the best parts of it is like doing the research, figuring out how things were used, like screen matching it. Actually, like receiving the props in the mail is the part I hate the most, no question. Like I can't stand getting things in mail. It's like so stressful for me. I'm not happy until like things are in, they're under like a case, like nothing can happen to them. But I love like I guess I'm like a bit of a detective nerd or something, but
right, right.
like
Really, what I call it's the hunt. You like
yeah,
you like the hunt and everything,
half the battle sometimes is even just knowing where pieces are. Like
Right,
like I have an idea of more or less how many puppets they made for each character and stuff like that, but it's like, okay, well, this one specific puppet's got to be out there somewhere. Who has it?
right.
And there's a lot of people that are very secretive about what they have. And
Yep.
some people love to share. Like I love to share because I feel like, I love enjoying this with other people and, showing the significance of pieces. And, but there are definitely like almost more people who are just like living in the in the woods there, and nobody knows what they have, and turns out they have these incredible pieces that they've had for a while, so
Right.
it's interesting.
Now, Gremlins one, there was a lot of puppets in that one, right?
There's a bunch. I think there was far more in Gremlins too.
Really?
There was definitely a bunch in the first one, but they were all kind of more or less working off of like almost like one mold kind of
Right.
design. So it's like Stripe is kind of more or less the same as everybody else. They just kind of took some hair and threw it on the top of them.
Yeah.
But back then they weren't really thinking about like archival materials. It was just sort of like, let's get the movie done and then pull in the dumpster.
Right.
Yeah.
So they saved some stuff, but I think a lot of it just got completely trashed. And so there's, I don't
Kind
know.
of like, yeah,
Yeah. I don't know
kind
how
of
many
like
are
the X
left now.
Files. You know,
Yeah.
for quite a few years in the X Files, some of the stuff, a lot of prop guys were saying that, they just, they would use it and then they would chuck it in the dumpster.
Yep.
You
Yep.
know, and you see that, you hear that a lot about different movies and shows and
It's back
stuff.
then they didn't know that there
Right.
was interest and that those things would have value.
And plus, they didn't really want to store the stuff.
Right.
I
It
think it's
costs a
changed.
fortune. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's changing a little bit from what I'm
Well, they
hearing.
see it as like modern movies. They see it as like another revenue stream. It's like,
Right.
all
Yeah.
right, make the movie. Like you see with we're seeing it with Gladiator 2 right now, where they had all this armor made, and they're like, well, what are we gonna do with it? We don't want to pay to store it, and so
Hmm.
they're just like selling off armor for Gladiators 2 now. It's kind of it's a little weird. It almost kind of cheapens it a little bit, I think, but
Right.
I
You
don't
don't
know.
have to work so hard for it. It's like the
Yeah.
hunt is important.
Exactly. Yeah.
When it's just right there for you to grab, it's kind of not
Right.
as much fun.
Now,
Yeah.
in your Gremlins props, is there one that you're really looking for that you just can't find?
Um, I don't know where there was a really good Daffy Gremlin that exists, but it kind of suffered a pretty brutal restoration, and it just kind of made it. It just took away, stripped like all the character from it. Some guy who didn't really know what he was doing just really like hacked at it, and it's a mess now. So I don't have a good Daffy Gremlin sort of in sight. There just really aren't any. Or if there are, I don't really know where they are. So that's kind of a little bit of a shame. But like I would say most of the stuff like that I would want, I know where it is, and it's just kind of like a waiting game. So so yeah, it's that's kind of the fun part though, is I
Right.
don't know. I just like knowing where things are. I might not necessarily even want to buy it. It's just kind of fun knowing who owns stuff and you know, it still makes it somewhat accessible.
Right. Now, with your collection and everything, have you ever reached out to any of the stars from the movie or the producers, the directors and stuff?
I met with Joe Dante last summer. We went down to his office in LA, which was it was kind of surreal. I don't like things that are like kind of like don't feel real, and there was definitely one of those moments where you walk in and you're like, I've seen pictures of this guy, going back 40, 50 years.
Yeah.
He's always existed on my like computer screen, and then you walk in and you see this old man in front of you, and you're just like, it's really weird. And so that was actually way cooler than I kind of expected it to be. I had a couple kind of private moments where I could like talk to him and show him like the puppets that I have and stuff. But I focus mostly on like the kind of creature creators. That's
Yeah.
really my interest. Like actors, I could kind of care less. But it's the guys who actually made these puppets and have the stories of how they did it and stuff like that. That's really what my biggest interest is.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of like here, at the
Yeah.
museum. When we get people, we try to explain to people that yes, it's the X Files, yes, it's Mulder and Scully, but we do not focus on Mulder and Scully. It's the other characters, but we really pay tribute to people
Behind
behind the
the
camera.
scenes.
Yeah.
That's basically, and that's people walk out of here and they're like, wow, you'll see molds here, you'll see all types of stuff, and
Yeah.
it's really like that, you know.
That's the cool stuff. I mean, those guys were like to me. I mean, Joe, is obviously an artist, and I've kind of befriended the screenwriter of Gremlins too, and but it's really the guys who created, like, who physically sculpted all these things and made all these characters that became kind of iconic in my world. To me, I think that's just like the coolest ever. Talking with them.
Yeah, definitely. That's my favorite part of the section is like seeing how they made things happen, seeing how they created the characters or how they created the special effect or whatever. That's what I most enjoy.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's like here we're doing a museum update here. We do it in the winter and everything, and it's still ongoing. And we're doing a section of Bill Terazakis, and he did a lot of the makeup and a lot of the props, especially for the revival. So we're doing a whole section on that and everything. And I'm reaching out to different people, trying to find in studio photos but it's
Mhm.
hard because they kind of didn't want cameras in, in the shop and the studio and stuff. So
That stuff is always the best, like, because then you can actually see like here's the props being made, you know.
right,
Right now, like I think I mean, it's not my next dream like piece actually isn't really a puppet. It's actually getting access to all the old negatives because they exist from Gremlins 2 is kind of my jam. That's sort of my favorite. And Rick Baker, like, and his crew, they took all these pictures of all these pieces being made, um, and so, like, to me, I think that'd be like the absolute coolest is just getting access to that because I have a whole rig where I can scan them and like do really great um, files from it. So I'd really like to get a hold of that, but it's sort of it's a delicate process.
it is fun because, like I said, here at the museum, we've got thousands of slides and negatives and stuff, and it's really cool seeing all that stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah,
You
yeah. That's
know,
the best part. It's like it's sort of it's a different window of looking in at the same thing. You know, um, we went down to the Academy Museum last year, and some of Rick Baker's old like behind the scenes footage was there, and so you can. I don't know, when you don't have access to that stuff, you have a general idea of like, okay, they would have used this puppet for this scene and done this. And then all of a sudden you see this footage and like some guy has their hand up, in a puppet holding it
yeah,
up, and then they're interacting, and it's sort of like it's like pulling the camera back from what you would normally see.
right,
And
Right.
to me, it's like mind blowing seeing that. You're like, oh my God, I know exactly what shot they're filming right there, you know?
yeah,
Yeah,
it is good stuff. But
definitely.
yeah, Gremlins 2, yeah, that they get Gremlins 2 gets kind of overlooked a lot and everything. It was enjoyable.
Gremlins 2 is like, I think most people like just instantly go to Gremlins 1 as like, well, this is the definitive one. To me, Gremlins 2 kind of like, I mean, I've been watching it for forever and even more in depth, like since I started this project. And like, I feel like I'm always finding new things that are just like hiding out. Like, apparently, Joe Dante owns one of the Rosebud sleds
Yeah,
from Citizen Kane, and he was just plugging the Rosebud sled into all of his movies, and nobody knew about it.
really.
Like Explorers, Gremlins 2, The Burbs, like all these movies were his. He would just be like hiding like freaking Rosebud in the back of like a
Oh
scene.
wow.
It's just goofy stuff like that. Where you're just like you're always finding new things, and so I feel like it's this like gift that never really stops giving because it's just like the whole movie is just so layered and just so much going on in the background. And towards the end of the movie, like they were doing the New York kind of
Yep.
sequences. I mean, there's hundreds of puppeteers just hanging out in the back, just doing their thing, and so we're kind of eagerly waiting for the 4K version of that to come out because I feel like it'll sort of unveil even more.
Yeah, physical media. Gotta love physical media.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We're hoping it comes out soon. I mean, there've been way lesser movies that got the 4K treatment in recent years. So I'm like, let's go, guys.
I was yeah, the first Gremlins, that's on 4K, right?
Yeah, it got a 4K release
And
a few
how
years
how was
back.
how was that transfer?
It's not bad. I mean, for all a lot of the movies kind of interiors or dark scenes, and
Hmm.
so it gets a little grainy, which isn't horrible, but uh, it's a decent transfer. I wouldn't say it's on the level of like an Aliens or an Alien,
Right.
which almost look like modern films on their releases, but they did a pretty good job. So.
That's good. So you mentioned your wife. I mean, did you have to really I mean, how did that go with your wife? She knows you want to do all this stuff and you know.
My wife is a writer, both by her job and her spare time. And so she doesn't really have any like really expensive hobbies or anything like that. She's just like, I'm just going to keep buying books. So, which is helpful. But I think she kind of like caught the bug where like she saw how happy it made me and how happy it makes our kids. And our my oldest, when he has friends over, first thing they want to see is, well, what's new? What are the new puppets that came in? Show, they come running in and see all the new stuff.
Yeah.
So I think she kind of recognizes that it's kind of just become part of our family's identity. And,
Right.
I feel like the way I look at it is like you can either have like a lot of ones and zeros or whatever on your computer screen, or you can do something interesting with your life. And that's kind of the way I see it. We got lucky. We had a pretty successful business that we sold a few years back, and this has been kind of the transition into that.
Well, it's a good transition.
Yeah.
So
Stories was like, I had a guy, we were just like door dashing in food or something, or groceries or whatever it was. Some guy shows up and we had like a gremlin doormat or something like that. And he goes, "Oh, gremlins, awesome." And he like pulls up his sleeve and he had like a gremlin tattoo. And I was like, "All right, man, come inside for a second. You got a second? I'm gonna show you something cool." And my wife told me like afterwards, she's like, that's what like serial killers would say.
That is true.
But like I brought him inside, I gave him like kind of the 2-minute tour, and like you could see his brain just like rebooting. He's like, "Wait, why is this here? Like all this stuff, like, what is this doing here?" Like he just brain couldn't like process it. And and so like I don't know, it's a good reminder that like the stuff that we do is like important and it has like a meaningful,
oh yeah.
It's for certain people, like this is like their favorite movie or their favorite TV show, and this is like is like with all their happy memories are tied to things like this. So it's kind of cool like that,
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it took me a while to when people kept asking for my autograph. Weird,
That's
man.
cool.
It's really weird,
Yeah, I mean,
But hey,
well, you're doing good stuff.
it makes people happy.
Yeah.
I think Gremlins is meaningful stuff for people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
You could be doing a lot worse with your life, like there's a lot of people that every day they have to like, it's hard to go to sleep where they're, taking away from people versus like giving them some happy memories and something that's, special to them. So that's good. Got some karma points, I guess.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
What's your future goals with Gremlins?
Future goals are just kind of continuing doing what I'm doing as long as I can. I've really gotten into 3D scanning and printing. And so I've been scanning pretty much all of our puppets that have come in. And I feel like that's like the only real way you can truly preserve these forever.
Right.
So I'm hopeful at a certain point, money needs to come in versus always going out. And so what I'm hopeful that I can do is make some like kind of scaled replicas. And so I'm kind of like putting the pieces slowly together for that, where, there's no other way to get a gremlin puppet in most people's hands. And so maybe doing like some smaller like heads of these gremlins that people could buy, and then that would help kind of continue allowing me to buy and restore all these puppets. So that's kind of, I think, the next step.
Yeah, I think it's really great,
So, you have an Instagram that you share some of your stuff with. And is there any other way for people to see some of this amazing collection?
I run Instagram is sort of my main platform. The other ones I kind of tolerate, but
if someone wants to find you on Instagram, what's your Instagram?
It's just Gremlins Museum, one word. And then I also run the Gremlins Museum kind of website, which is sadly a little bit out of date at this point. I need to update with all the new puppets we've got. It's been a little bit. Turns out, like, I don't know, the deeper you go into all this stuff, then you want to write these big, long, book-long entries into it, and that actually takes some devoted time.
It's hard to keep up with everything.
We will post his website and his Instagram in the comments.
Sounds good.
All right. I appreciate, all your time, and it was great talking to you.
Yeah, likewise. Nice seeing you guys.
Yeah.